You believe you're in control. You tell yourself that your thoughts are your own, that every choice you make is the product of careful, rational deliberation.
Well, that belief, it's a complete fantasy. It's a story, a carefully constructed illusion your ego builds to protect you from a terrifying reality. The truth is, you're a puppet, and your emotions, they're pulling all the strings. This is Unspoken Rules, the place where we expose the psychological truths nobody ever teaches you. Today, we are going deep, decoding Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature to hand you the operating manual for the human animal, the one you were never supposed to have. Let's get into it.
All right, our first law. This one is fundamental, and it's also the one that people resist the most. It's the rationality delusion. See, our whole society is built on this idea that we're logical beings, right? That we make our decisions based on facts and reason. But that is just a comforting lie, and believing that lie makes you incredibly predictable and very, very easy to manipulate.
Okay, let's really dive into this quote. It cuts right to the heart of our own self-deception. I mean, think about it. We're constantly telling ourselves these neat little stories about our logical decisions. Why we took that job, why we ended that relationship, why we trust a certain person. But these are just rationalizations, stories we invent after the fact. The actual decision, that was made seconds, maybe even minutes before, deep down in the primitive, emotional centers of your brain.
Look, if you can truly grasp this one distinction, I promise you, the world will never look the same again. Emotion is the primary driver. It's like a powerful wild horse, and your conscious mind, well, that's just the rider, hanging on for dear life, desperately trying to steer something way more powerful than it is. And let's be honest, most of the time, it's just pretending it meant to go that way all along. Your brain doesn't think, it feels first, and only then does it scramble to build a logical story to fit that feeling. Now this is where it gets really interesting. This chart shows you exactly how the ego protects itself. These biases, they aren't just random errors in your thinking. No, they are your mind's personal defense attorneys. Confirmation bias, that keeps you comfortable, so you never have to feel the sting of being wrong. Superiority bias, that's the one that makes you completely blind to your own flaws while you're busy judging others for theirs. And blame bias, oh, that's a classic. It makes sure your ego stays flawless by making every single failure someone else's fault. This right here, this is the source code of human irrationality. So how do you use this? Well, when a colleague rejects your data by citing their own single confirming example, that's confirmation bias in action. Don't argue with more data. Instead, frame your argument in a way that aligns with their existing beliefs. You manage the bias, you win the argument.
So I want you to ask yourself this, and be honest. The last time you had a really strong opinion, did you arrive at it through some impartial analysis, or did an emotion get there first? The desire to win, the fear of missing out, the need to feel morally superior? Come on, be honest. Because facing that answer, that's the first step out of the prison.
So here's the key takeaway, the really crucial point. This isn't about becoming some kind of unfeeling robot. Not at all. It's about recognizing that emotions are data. They are not directives. See, the average person is a complete slave to their feelings. The master strategist, though, observes their emotional reaction, that flash of anger, that surge of excitement. They question it, and then they choose a course of action from a wider, more detached perspective. They create a gap between impulse and action, and in that gap lies power.
Okay, that brings us to our second law, and it builds perfectly on the first one. Because if people are driven by all these hidden emotions, what does that mean for the social world? It means you can't take anything at face value. It's all a performance, a theater. And every single person you meet is wearing a mask.
And this right here, this just perfectly illustrates the human paradox. You've got the public persona, the curated self, the one designed for social acceptance. It's the polite colleague, the supportive friend, the humble leader. But underneath it all lies the shadow, the collection of all the traits we repress just to fit in. The raw ambition, the deep-seated insecurities, the envy, the aggressive desires. And make no mistake, that shadow doesn't just go away. It just waits.
But here's the thing about the mask. It's not perfect. The shadow always finds a way to leak. The real truth is in the nonverbal stuff, the language behind the language, a micro-expression of contempt that flashes for a fraction of a second, a slight rise in vocal pitch that betrays anxiety, a gesture that completely contradicts the reassuring words. This is your tactical advantage. So, when a business partner says they love the deal, but you see a flash of disgust, that's your signal to dig deeper. They've told you the truth, just not with their words. You have to learn to ignore the words and watch the music.
See, the average person just judges the mask. They call it fake or inauthentic. That is a huge strategic error. The mask is necessary for civilization to even function. A master strategist knows this. They don't judge the performance, they decode it. They see the gap between the mask and the person wearing it, and in that gap they find leverage, truth, and a profound advantage.
And all of this leads us to our final law. And this might just be the most dangerous aspect of human nature. We're talking about the fragile human ego and the powerful invisible currency it trades in.
We have to be really clinical about this. Envy is not some simple sin. It's a biological mechanism. As social animals, we are hardwired to constantly compare ourselves to others. Status, resources, attention, these are survival metrics. Envy is just the alarm that sounds when we feel our position in the hierarchy is threatened.
And here is the most crucial part of all. Nobody admits to being envious. Why? Because to admit envy is to admit inferiority, and that is intolerable to the ego. So it gets repressed. It gets disguised. It comes out as righteous indignation or sudden criticism, passive aggression, or even subtle sabotage. If you do not learn to see the signs of envy in others, you will constantly be blindsided by attacks that seem to come from absolutely nowhere.
So this is how the true masters of influence operate. This is their playbook. They get that to persuade someone, you must first bypass their ego's defense system. You don't argue with facts, you validate their identity. You confirm their self-opinion that they are intelligent and in control. You listen deeply, making them the center of the universe. You allay their insecurities with targeted praise. You frame your ideas as extensions of their own. By managing their ego, you make them receptive to your influence. You turn a potential adversary into an unwitting ally.
Just let that sink in for a second. Your entire social world is a projection. You are not interacting with people. You are interacting with your perception of their masks, filtered through all of your own emotional biases. To see clearly is to see through this double illusion.
And now, you see it. You see the code. You see the emotional drivers behind the facade, the social masks people wear for survival, and the fragile egos that dictate their every move. The patterns are now visible.
And here's the most dangerous part. You can't unsee it. Once you see the strings, you can never go back to believing the puppets are real. Every conversation, every negotiation, every relationship will now look different to you. This knowledge is an irreversible advantage.
So, you're at a crossroads. You can click away and return to the comfortable delusion of rationality and sincerity. Or you can choose the more difficult path, the path of awareness. The choice is yours.
If you choose awareness, then subscribe and join the small percentage of individuals who are willing to see reality as it is. Like this explainer if you are ready to discard illusion for truth. And comment below what is the most dangerous cognitive bias you see operating in the world today. Turn on notifications and continue your awakening. We'll see you next time.